You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Ask Drone U. My name is Paul.
And my name is Rob. Thank you guys for joining us today. As always, we appreciate it very much. This is episode 998, and I am excited for this episode because I think I am going to learn a lot about something that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this as well. In fact, this was a question that initially came up. Someone called in and said, hey, I want to learn how to create time lapses with point clouds. And I was out there trying to look for software for a solution. I know that the Intel Mission Control does some really cool stuff where you could do some screen recordings, but I wanted to showcase if I were literally going to do this, how would I do this myself? So for those of you who are watching on YouTube for maybe the first time, yes, this is our podcast, but we are trying to give you some how-tos as well, because some of this information is more technical, it's more deep, so it requires a little bit more time. So bear with us, but we are going to be showcasing exactly how to create time lapses or hyperlapses, aka moving time lapses, with point clouds. We're going to be using Pix4D. And the workflow that I'm going to be using is essentially creating a video animation inside of the point cloud, exporting that video animation into a timeline, and then essentially creating my hyperlapse or time lapse with Final Cut Pro. Now, I'm not going to have enough time on the show to actually do the whole process. I'm going to show you the process. As a creative, I would expect you to have some Final Cut Pro or some Adobe Premiere Pro experience and know how to drag clips in and then essentially create transitions through those clips. And there's a lot creatively that you can do to make these transitions smooth, seamless, and beautiful, to make beautiful time lapses and hyperlapses. So that being said, we're going to talk about really quick, we're going to play the question and our sponsor, and then we are going to show you exactly how to do this. And I'm very excited. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. If you find this information useful, please subscribe or leave us a review. So today's question is brought to you by our friends at Fortress UAV. If you have a drone that is broken, then you've got to use promo code DRONEU for 25% off your diagnostic fee. That's essentially when they figure out what's wrong with your drone. And if you're wondering why there is a fee, let me tell you why there's a fee. Because for me, I literally left my gimbal on my Inspire 2 and traveled, and now that cable doesn't work anymore. Well, when I figured, oh, this is just a simple ribbon cable, I can fix this myself. You can't, because you literally have to take the entire thing apart. So when you are having your drone getting diagged or whatever you want to call it, just know that it takes time, because these drones are a lot more complex and built so much more complex than they used to be. So if you want to get your drone fixed by a group of guys, these guys are veterans, right?
They are.
Yeah, and where are they from?
So. They are in the West Coast, I believe.
Well, they're fixing my drone right now, so if...
I should know. I shipped them the drone.
Yeah, you should know.
I don't remember. We talked to a lot of people, but they're great folks, and we really appreciate their sponsorship and working with them. I know that over the past couple of years, they've really refined their process to make it much more efficient and easy for you. They've got liaisons that actually become your contact person once you send your drone in, which is a really nice thing that they're doing, so that you have a person that you can talk to if you have questions or wonder, what's going on. They do guarantee a 7-day turnaround. Maybe guarantee is not the right word, but they do. Well, that says here, repairs typically have a 7-day turnaround time. So they try to get things back to you very quickly, and if they're not going to be able to, they'll let you know. But go to fortressuav.com/droneu for a specific page that you can go and get the 25% off. And by the way, if you're a Drone U member, you would get an extra, well, actually not an extra, you'll get 5% off of the actual fee to repair the drone. So they're doing some nice things for us, great people, very good at what they do. And so give them a try if you have something wrong with your drone.
Cool, let's hear the question.
Good morning, guys. This is Chucky from California. I had a quick question. Paul, you had mentioned in one of your podcasts, I can't remember which one, I think it was 694, that there was a way to do the time-lapse point cloud process. I was wondering if you could show an example of that versus explaining it. Even though you're great at explaining things, I was wondering if you could show us an example of one. Also, if you could revisit Drone Deploy, they have some new AI features, and I was wondering if you could kind of make some comparisons with the new AI functionality in Drone Deploy versus Pix4D, and I'd like to hear your opinion on it. Thanks for your feedback, and thanks for your guidance and wisdom. Cheers.
That was a very nice comment.
That was a very nice comment. And Chucky, we thank you for taking the time to send your question in. If you've got a question like Chucky did, go to askdroneu.com. We would love to hear from you. And like we say a lot, we know that you probably got multiple questions, and for whatever reason have not taken the time to call it in. Please do, because a lot of other people, I'm sure, have the same question. But this is a fun one for you.
Yeah, this is a fun one. In fact, I was thinking about how deep do I want to go, because I can show people how to change the points to look better, how to add a 3D textured mesh to get more out of the videos, how to export these video animation lines into trajectories with GPS information that you can upload into Litchi to have the drone fly yourself. Like, there are just layers and layers and layers and layers of detail that we can go. So I'm just going to try to be as succinct as possible, but bear with me as I want to try to make this as best for you as I can. So what I'm going to do, here we go. So as you can see on your screen, we are in Pix4D now. Voila! All right,
Very cool.
So a couple things. So this is a ghost town or a ghost ranch. You may have seen this before in a couple different shows. This Netflix did their Godless show here, and there's a couple other shows as well. But I want to show you something. Rob, do you see these little pixels, these random like things, these random points?
Oh yeah, lots of them.
So what shape does that look like to you for all these little pixels?
Like little squares?
Little squares, right? Well, in order to create a time lapse or a hyperlapse, what we're going to have to do in short is create a video animation of our point cloud. And then we're going to create multiple video animations from the different point clouds that we build over time. And then we're going to merge those together in Final Cut Pro to create our overall time lapse or hyperlapse if the camera is moving itself. But there are some things that you can do to make this model look a lot better. And one of those things that we can do is we can turn on the 3D textured mesh. Now, if you notice at the bottom of my screen, you're gonna see that green floating bar, and essentially what it's doing is it is loading the 3D textured mesh. Now, the 3D textured mesh can make your model look much better, but if you haven't taken the time to clean up your point cloud and then reprocess your 3D textured mesh, then chances are you're gonna have some areas that are gonna have what we call icing, or at least Bill calls it icing. And essentially, the 3D textured mesh is when we create triangles between our points. So when we create these triangles, in fact, I'm not sure if this loaded properly, so I'm gonna do this one more time. 3D textured mesh. Okay, I guess it did. Not very good 3D textured mesh. But anyway, long story short is it could have more noise. This is a great example of icing right here. So remember, with mapping, we can only map what we can see. So if we don't get good oblique imagery, then we get stuff like this. See the icing below everything? Now Pix4D is glitching because it's still showing me points even though I have the 3D textured mesh turned on. So that is a Pix4D glitch. I should probably update to the 3.44, but I'm on 3.3.21 still. So instead of doing a 3D textured mesh, what we can also do is we can make our model look a little bit different by doing a couple things. So if I'm in Pix4D, what I can do is go to point clouds and see this little arrow. I can drop down the menu for point clouds, drop down densified point cloud, and then drop down display properties. And here I can edit the actual point size to make my model look more densified or less densified. But I can also change the type of point that we're seeing. So from shader, here it says shader, I can actually go to screen aligned quads and then go to spherical points. And notice it cleans it up just a little bit. And then I can make them just slightly smaller. And that gives us a little bit better view, okay? So if I want to make the points bigger, see how that changes the model just ever so slightly. All right. And then if I back it down, see all that detail. So essentially, if you want to showcase a better looking model, what I would recommend that you do before you create your video animations in the model is change the points. Change the points to make them look however you want to look. Now, if you want to get really crazy and say, look, I created a thermal model, then you can change this to thermal. And now we have a thermal ghost town.
Nice.
So if you really want to screw your marketing department, this is how to do it. Don't do that. All right. So this is not a real thermal model. I really need to say that. Don't use this feature at all. Okay. Even though it does actually accurately portray the landscape with the cold trees and the hot ground. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so we're going to go back to spherical points, okay? Really, really, really important. Now, I would essentially clean this particular model up, and then I would create my 3D textured mesh, and the next step is to create video animations. Now, if you're familiar with creating any type of videos, then you know that typically what you're doing is taking video clips and importing them into a timeline. So very much kind of like if we're here in Final Cut Pro, I have, this is essentially some signage that Sarah did. And I was just trying to showcase the B52 signage. And as you can see here, I have different clips overlaid on music. It's just very simple, as we're just going to put one clip after the other. And yes, I'm very particular about where clips run and what they show and all that. So this is obviously Final Cut Pro, very, very easy and seamless. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back in to our Pix4D mapper, and we're going to create our first video animation. So we need to create a video animation in each model. So if we go out and we model the first week and we create that point cloud, we want to create an animation. Then when we do the next week, we create a new animation. And we do the next week, we create a new animation. We take those video files and we drop them in to our Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere Pro. Now, here's the thing. You have to get these models to literally start and stop in the same place. So there's some tricks that I'm going to show you on creating a video animation and exporting that information. You can upload it into Litchi and literally have your drone fly that same route to give you a visual version of the time lapse, and then your model or point cloud version. Then you can intertwine both to show people the difference. That's something that I do. It's a visual. It's kind of a cool thing to do visually, but also it's great because we can export our, our flight path, our video animation flight path in Pix4D, and then we can use that in our next model to make sure that we start the time lapse at the place essentially where we stopped the last time. Now, here's the thing. If this project is going to go 52 weeks, maybe do a time lapse every 2 weeks, and then do a maybe 1 or 2 second clip of the time lapse, and then add all those together, merge them together. And then what we're going to do is essentially, smooth it out. So let's go back into Pix4D. All right, so here we're back. Now, I've already done some video animation, so I'm going to essentially turn that on. You can see all of my video animations. If I want to move around in Pix4D, typically I just click and drag. But if I want to orbit, what I'm going to do is press Shift, click, and drag, okay? And that lets me essentially orbit around so I can see things differently, all right? So you're probably wondering, how come you're seeing a remote session, whatever? It's because you cannot use a Mac computer for Pix4D. I'm literally logged into a computer that's like 3 feet that way. So anyway, you can see these different video animations. And if I click them, Rob, I actually have my sidebar panel closed. So I'm gonna open that up. And, I can't see this because it's covering up on the screen. But if I wanna play this particular motion, now notice it looks very glitchy, right? It looks like it's kind of taking a step in between each side. Well, all you have to do is turn interpolation on, and then what it'll do is it'll smooth it out when it actually exports this. So you can't see it on your screen because I have done this funky thing. But see, here are the actual settings, okay? So see, use interpolation must be checked. And then if you want to become the smoothest pilot ever, all you do is turn off the duration. So instead of like a 10-second duration or a 30-second duration, you can do like 120-second duration. But you can see here that we're going into the model. we're creating this video. Here's our little orbit. So what I would do is if I were creating a time-lapse orbit, this is the motion that I would show first. It's just a very simple orbit around the project site, because that's going to make it super easy to get a nice, clean-looking hyperlapse without getting too technical, too many variables, and too much other stuff that's going on. So,
and then you just play this route, so to speak, over and over and over again.
Pretty much, yeah. So notice, let me just stop this really fast. Notice, okay, see all these video animation lines? Like, that's a lot of video animation lines. Let's just go ahead and show.
Are there that many because you were playing with it and you wouldn't normally use that many?
I was teaching other people in our mapping classes how to create video animations.
Got it. Okay.
So let's go over how to create a video animation. Actually, before we do that, I want to show everyone one more thing. So we talked about, in order to create a time lapse or a hyperlapse that's smooth and easy and doesn't have a lot of complexity, to make it easier to make it smooth in post, let's just say, what I can do is I can set up my perfect little, you know what, let's just make a new video animation to show people start to finish. So I want to do a very simple orbit of my project site. So I'm going to put it right in the center of my screen. I'm going to close this so I know exactly what I'm looking at, full frame. Then I'm going to click this button right here, top left corner. Yeah, top left corner. See that? That's our video animation button. Okay, so I like to use user recorded views, Rob. There's two options here: computer camera positions and orientation, or user recorded views. I like user recorded views because it just makes everything a lot easier to work with, because essentially what we see on screen is the video that it will export. So if we click next, now what it's going to do is, this is a waypoint. So if I click record trajectory, now this is a waypoint. So what I want to do is click in the very middle of the map. This part is really key because you need to remember where you click in the map, because when you orbit, you're going to be orbiting around that particular point. And you want to make sure that you're orbiting around the same point for each one of your video clips, so that way when you put it together at the end, it's all the same type of motion around, the object itself. This is going to take some practice, guys. Just want to let you know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click shift, and we're going to orbit around the corner. So here's our bank building. I think this was like our jail. I'm going to essentially press shift and hold, and I'm going to very slowly move. Because remember, if I'm doing a map every week, I would literally want to move just this much and say record trajectory and next. And let's do a 10-second duration is pretty long for a very small, short movement. So remember, I was talking about you change the duration if you want a really smooth motion. So let's see what 10 seconds looks like. Let's go ahead and open our sidebar. We're going to click play. And that's our motion. It's literally that easy. But notice how glitchy it is. When you actually render out the video, it's going to be a lot smoother. So let's go ahead and set the duration to 30 seconds.
You have 130 there. Is that what you intended?
Oh. So go 30 seconds. Apply. Now, if I play the same motion, look how much slower it is. When you're doing more advanced motions, this makes your motions much, much, much easier to smoothen out. Now, remember, if you let's say you orbit, and instead of moving your mouse just to the right or to the left to create an orbit around your subject, if you move your mouse up or down, you're going to change how that entire video animation is going to look. So make sure when you make these video animations, you're making them very, very slowly. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and render that out because it's not going to take very long. We'll go ahead and do a new folder with podcasts. I just want to show people to get smoother podcast animation. Let's go ahead and call this Rob's Bald Head. All right, let's save that. And now it's going to render out, and it's going to show us frame by frame by frame. We should have just done 10 seconds. Dang it. Now it's going to take forever. Let's go ahead and cancel this.
So while you're working through that, I have to admit, maybe the listeners are not, but I am a little bit confused. I thought that this would be obtained through flying the animations, but all it's doing is taking the data that was obtained from the acquisition flights and creating the animations from that data.
That's correct. So he asked a very particular,
That's cool.
very specific point where he said, I want to create a time lapse with the point cloud. So what we essentially have done is we have gone out and mapped this area with a Phantom 4 Pro, and we've put together our 3D model. And now what we're doing is we're creating a flight path from the 3D model as a video that then will inlay into another program once we've created a video each week or whatever the interval is. And then we'll literally essentially warp stabilize between those, and then we get our time lapse. So it's a long process, but it's no one in construction marketing is doing this right now.
Yeah.
And this is a really, really powerful way to showcase site progression in a way that no one's ever seen before.
Talk about a great upsell.
Yeah. Now there were some drone companies, I believe at Interdrone like 2 years ago, showcasing point cloud time lapse software. But the only thing that I could find was Connect that works with AutoCAD, which is like a completely different workflow. So I wasn't really able to find any of those old companies that I'd seen. I'm not even sure if they're still around. So if you know of a company that allows you to put multiple models in a software and then essentially slide between all the different times. That's why Pix4D is 4D. The fourth dimension is time. Like, you know, like, do you think about that? They probably would not agree with that. They'd be like, no, that's not the fourth dimension. But in my eyes, it is. I mean, like, that's what 4D means to me. So anyway, long story short, I think this is one of the really cool features inside of Pix4D. And again, all I did was create a very, very simple orbital motion. Remember, we want to choose the point that we're going to orbit around. So we orbit around the same exact point in every single video. Okay, so the video is almost 93% done. I'm going to show you the video because I want you to see that it's smoother once you actually render and export the video. Because the next step would be taking that video. So let's go ahead and go to our files, go to documents, and then podcast animation, Rob's bald head. So we're getting a little glitchiness just because we're doing this over the web, but you can see how much more smooth it is. There's no interpolation problems. Let me show you another one.
And then you take that and you put it into whatever video process or video editing you're going to use.
I would take this particular clip, and since I'm running two separate computers right now, it's really difficult to do this, but I would take this particular clip and then I would literally just like here, just kind of drop it in, and then my next clip would be the next series. And then literally what I would do is go from, just like I've done right here, notice this transition, we're going through the wall kind of. There's different ways that you can utilize these transitions. So the transitions that I would do is I would want to do the fastest cross dissolve ever to go from one video animation to the next, to just make it look as seamless as possible. So, I mean, all that we do is go to transitions right here. Here's a cross dissolve. We can drop the cross dissolve in, zoom, zoom, zoom. So zoom, zoom, zoom in. And then we can set the length of the cross dissolve to be just hyper short. Let that render. See those little black dots mean it's rendering. And then, see, you can make it longer. I mean, we can make it really long if we want to. And then remember, this starting motion, the starting frame would be like, you know, essentially the animation. Let me see if I have any animations.
I was just going to ask, do you have an example of animation that portrays what this would look like?
Give me a second.
It's kind of like live television, doing this on the fly a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just trying to see if I have anything I can show. Well, here's an animation, but I think, so this was how to create video animations actually. So I did this for the class. Yeah, how to create the animations. And then you see, I was again talking about the 3D textured mesh. See all that icing right there?
Icing, yeah.
And then just going through, literally doing the same thing. There's our video animation. There's the waypoints between them. I can export that into my next project. In fact, let me show people how to do that really quick before I move away from this. So I would take this, drop it in. In fact, let me see if I can get the computer to Let's do this. Let's go ahead and we'll make one more video animation. I'm just gonna do the whole process with you guys right now. So we just did that video animation, right? Look at that, very simple. Very, 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 very simple. So if I wanted to match that same thing, remember we want to close this so it's full width. Yeah, see how it just scaled the map right there? So we have that trajectory line. Get over here. Okay. So we're going to zoom in a little bit. Ooh, we're going to zoom in a lot. Okay. Now remember, I just orbited from the wrong place. I want to orbit from over here. So shift. And let's go ahead and orbit. And let's do a new animation. Next. Record waypoint 1. Okay, waypoint 1, waypoint 2, next, finish, open up the sidebar again, go ahead and render that out. And once that renders out, what I'm going to do is in the background, open up Google Drive, upload these to myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload these. Remember, I'm using 2 different computers because you can't use Pix4D on a Mac. I don't care what people say, don't do it. All right, so what I'll do, come on, is drop the first one in, go back to 4D. It's exporting this one. Now remember, I would typically be doing a video animation from another map that I had created at a different time. So it should essentially be, showing me, different information. Now, another thing that you can do is you could actually create your entire video animation here and then export the video animation trajectory as a CSV file and import it into Litchi. And then you could literally have the drone fly the same exact pattern that we're looking at on screen and save that as a project. And then you can go back to the site and it'll fly that same path and you could create this hyperlapse in a whole different way. It'd actually probably be a lot easier. You could have Litchi take a picture every 2 seconds and do a full orbit and do that every week and then utilize Photoshop to create a time lapse utilizing the photos you took over time and then having it create just one orbital time lapse that's probably 60 or 70 seconds long, but at least there will be seamless motion between all the different data sets. So
to visualize that, it goes around once, and then when it hits the ending point and the new starting point, you get the new data, and it does that over and over. The updated data. With each trip around the orbit, you get the new version of the site.
Ooh.
Correct?
Yeah, if you were to save the waypoint, essentially, so let me make sure you're asking. So what I just said is I'm going to take the video trajectory, put it into Litchi, and then have the drone fly that waypoint mission essentially every single week, taking photos. And then I take those photos and I just batch upload them into Photoshop.
Right.
And then that, what was your question?
And so, and you're creating effectively a video, at least something that appears to be video from that.
From the photos, yeah, which is how a traditional time lapse is made. It's just lots of photos stacked together over time.
And so from each orbit, being one unit, each orbit occurs, and then the second orbit starts, that's when you see the updated version of the site.
Yes, so
on and on.
So what you would do is, let's say you took 100 photos for each orbit. You would just, for the first orbit, week 1, you would just probably process the first 60 photos. And then for week 2, you would probably process photos 61 through 100. And then for week 3, you're back at number 1 and you do 1 through 60. I would do it in 30 picture intervals to make for this smoothest time lapse. But that way you don't have any issues with looking at the model and then it moving really quick and having some jerky motion that doesn't make it look as professional, which you can face with this particular workflow that I'm showing here. So I'm just trying to say that you can utilize parts of this workflow, export the CSV file via a video trajectory, import it into Litchi, and then essentially create your hyperlapsed motion. And then you have the same start off location or same takeoff location and same start point on every single week. So literally the video will be seamless every single week. And a lot of people didn't even know that you can export these trajectories. So now that that's done processing, if I wanted to export the trajectory, I just hover over animation trajectory 5, right click, export, and now it's as a CSV file, and voila. And see, I've already done this once because there's waypoint CSV. So
practice makes perfect.
Yep. So now if I go back into that folder, see I have video 2. Let's go ahead and throw that on Drive. Less than a minute left. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this. Go back into my computer here. All right, so let's go ahead and close this out. Now we're going to open up Google Drive on this end. Awesome. Let's download this video. Sorry, guys. Sorry, friends. But, I mean, this is something that people really want to know. So save that. And then we're going to save this one. Okay, saving that. Let's go ahead and create a new project. I'll just call this Rob's. And then actually, so I can put video 2 here, but I know Rob's bald head goes ahead of that. So let's, interesting. Ooh, it gave me a bad file. I'm going to have to go log back into the machine. Give me a second. So if I had 2 videos like such, see, it's essentially showing the orbit, right? And then it's going to jump. Boop, right to the beginning. See that?
Yeah.
So that's what we want to avoid, okay?
Oh, that's what we want to avoid.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so the thing is that clip was the same clip over and over. So let me go ahead and go back and download the other proper clip just really fast. This is going to be another long podcast. Sorry, guys. Back in there like swimwear. It's perfect. So now if you are doing any construction marketing whatsoever, time lapses are something that's it's just really powerful stuff. And I'm giving you a few different ideas on how to do it yourself. So now it's rendering video 1. We're going to upload this, and then I'm going to essentially show you what to do in Final Cut Pro to smoothen these out. And then you're done. You've got a hyperlapse.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Now, if you're trying to do hyperlapses for construction site, another way to do it is through Litchi. So if you have Litchi for whatever reason, or you don't have Litchi for whatever reason, so what we can do is, oh, it's not going to let me do anything while I don't have a drone plugged in. That sucks. Oh, well, at least I can show you what Litchi looks like. So screen mirroring, Apple TV. And so this is what Litchi looks like. Obviously, there's lots of different functionalities to use. There's a lot of settings that you can use, but also you can like set up pre-programmed flight missions and waypoints. So if I want to create a waypoint, I can do that. If I want to create an orbit in the same place over and over again, I can do that. I can actually save that particular mission. Gosh, trying to find Albuquerque, Rio Grande. Okay. Should be in here somewhere. There it is. So if I want to set up a particular waypoint, let's go to the field. See, there's that hidden airport again that no one knows about. All right. So is it just, there we go. Okay, so here's our field, and we can literally create a new circle and then create all the settings that we want within this. So the altitude, the radius, the speed, and then we can save this and pull up the same thing every single time. And that's really the key to getting a good time lapse, is just doing this over and over again at different points in time and then putting all that footage together.
Do you have to take off and start and land from the same place every time?
You don't have to. This will remember its point.
It'll take you out and it'll go to wherever the starting point is and then start.
Yep. So, and I think that's actually super key. So I think it's really cool. Now going back, it looks like we are done here. So let's go ahead and open up Google Drive. Let's do video 1, import this really fast. As you can see here from our screen, it's very, 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 very fast internet. So this shouldn't take but a minute. But I just want to showcase one more thing too, is that if you actually check this out, I have 2 ghost ranches here. And this is another ghost ranch that I did, the same ghost ranch, different time. And the only difference is, see the big parking lot? They wanted to have the parking lot in the ortho mosaic so that way that they could draw advertising over it. I mean, they didn't want points, geolocation, ground control points. They didn't want to measure anything. All that they wanted to do was draw advertising over the buildings to showcase people where they can sell their stuff. So.
Which is a fantastic example of how you can use models without all the extra stuff.
Yeah, you don't need to be a surveyor to literally create an ortho and have someone use it as a flyer backdrop. You know what I mean?
All kinds of things.
So it's just, and here's the thing, it's really interesting. This whole surveyor stuff is coming up more and more frequently, and they have legitimate reasons to fear people. I mean, I just saw someone drawing boundary lines over a Google Earth image and submitted it to someone, and I just shook my head and I'm like, this is what surveyors are afraid of. And I totally get it. But there is a role that drone pilots play when they're knowledgeable and educated on how to create drone maps that can essentially supplement surveyors. So, but there's also a lot of things that drone pilots can do that they don't need surveyors for. And I think that that's extremely important to showcase to people. Okay, so we've got video 1. Here is essentially our time lapse. Let me see if I can make this any bigger. So here's our time lapse from step 1, and then see it jump cuts into step 2. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah.
So we are essentially 2 zoomed in on the second piece. That's why I'm saying that it really takes a master of their art to essentially make this smoother. So we can see that there's a significant difference in zoom. So here's how I cheat it. I can just crop it down. Crop. Here we go. Boom. Show me just that. Okay, done. All right, see how that transitions. Perfect. Okay. Now, while that renders, because you can see how kind of grayed out it is when it's rendering, I can add my cross dissolve. Yep. And then zoom, 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 zoom. Go ahead. This should teach you a lesson, Rob.
What is that? I'm learning all kinds of lessons.
Nothing is what you think it is.
Yes.
So
I think most of us are aware of that, unfortunately. It's getting worse.
So see, that's too short. I think that transition's too short. So see, that's a nice seamless.
So it keeps it from doing that chop thing.
Exactly. And that's how you create it. And then all you do is just export your time-lapse master file. Rob's bald head. I can tell it what I want.
You're all welcome to use that name for yours as well, just so you know.
But anyway, in short, that's how you do it. That is how you create a time-lapse or a hyperlapse from...
That's pretty cool.
Right?
So go use this, folks.
Yeah, this is good information. By the way, come check out our mapping class. I think you'll really want to know why this map looks the way that it does, because with a standard double grid flight, that is not going to get you that particular model. There's the flights.
Holy shit.
Oh, yeah. People are look at this and
How
they're
long
like,
did that take?
Whoa. Remember, this was in a 35 knot wind. So that's why all my orbits look all jaggedy. This took me about 3.5 hours.
It did.
Yeah.
That's a lot of batteries.
No, it was like... it was so windy, so it took me so much time to go from one flight to the next flight. But you can see I have my standard double grid, and I've got my orbits, but I also have, flights inside of that. See, there's another layer of flights inside.
Wow.
See?
So I would assume...
This is how you get the detail on those facades.
Sure.
But you have to also know the rules of oblique imagery, because if your obliques are too far off from your double grid, it won't process all this together. And I can show you what that looks like because I just recently ran into that problem.
Is that something they're working on to where you don't have to be that precise with the obliques, for example?
No, because this is all trigonometry. So if you have angles that cause extreme error, you don't want to put them in with photos that have less error because of the angle of tilt that they were shot at.
Sure, but I would think, we can always have smarter software that takes those idiosyncrasies and it corrects for them, theoretically.
Theoretically.
That's much easier said than done.
True.
interesting.
True. So anyway, this is Inside Pix4D, and I hope this helped you understand exactly what goes into creating a time lapse or a hyperlapse with point clouds using Pix4D. So hope you enjoyed the show. Let us know what you think. If you have a question, go to askdroneu.com, upload that question right away. And we would love to help. If you're looking to become a member because you want to be a pilot who has lifelong success and you want to love your job, that means you're going to have to constantly challenge yourself, learn more, and stay ahead of the competition. You can do that all at DroneU. Check it out, droneu.education. That's going to do it for our show today. My name is Paul.
And my name's Rob.
This is Ask Drone U.